So we're going to begin the May 3rd Policy Committee. And I am just going to kind of kick us off. And then I've asked Anthony, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, to really kind of facilitate from there. I thought it would be easier with people coming in to present. So, and I understand that Member Sandholm isn't able to join us. So thank you, Member Sadowski, for being here with us as part of our policy committee. And we can begin.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. So we're going to jump right on into our policies. We have policy 508. Mr. Crane is here to walk us through 508, extended school year for certain students with IEPs.
So this is a recommendation for a new policy for the district. We haven't had this policy in our package. It supports our current practices that we have for extended school year already. We have a nice, rich extended school year special education program. We've always had that in the Duluth schools, but we never had a policy that kind of basically outlines all the things that we do well already in the school district. And this is an MSAD policy that they packaged, and with no red lines, I recommend that we consider adopting this policy.
Any questions?
How many, I just was curious how many, and if you don't know the exact number, that's okay, but how many youth per year do you serve?
I do. Let me date back to 15 years ago. We had an extended school year program that ran for 5 weeks long, and it was in June and July that we kind of ran that program. And we had about 80 students attend at that time. We've grown the program with our recommendation to move it closer to the school year. So right now we operate an extended school year program that runs just before school, and we push that as more of a jump start before school to get ready, but it's over the summer, so it qualifies as an extended school year. We actually shrunk our program to as few as 2 weeks for a couple of years. And now with the recent pandemic and loss of recovery services, it's built back up to 4 weeks long of rich programming. We also have work site-based things happen out in the community too, and that qualifies under ESY. We have, in the last 5 years, have about 100 students. Right now we're ticking over 150 because of recovery services. We're trying to recruit more and more kids and make sure that they're well supported. And many kids need the support because of the concepts of bringing back lost learning opportunities, missed opportunities. I'm pleased to see a lot more IEP recommendations for IEP students to get help over the summer, because we need to boost up skills. Does that provide some of that data that you were hoping for?
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great to learn a little bit more about the history of it.
Member Rosie, you have a question?
Member Lafleur, your mic.
I got my hand up, but I didn't get my mic up. A follow-up to that. So the 4 weeks this year are going to go in August.
July 25th is the start date, and it will run through August 18th. And we also have a parallel program in the district, summer school this is not really, the numbers that I just gave you were for special education students, not the summer school program.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to add that ESY, or extended school year, also has a separate funding source.
Yep.
So, I don't know about you, but when I hear something like that, I might go, oh, how do we pay for that? So there is a secondary source of funding for that extended school year, which allows many districts to provide the robust services in the summer.
Member Lafleur.
Yeah, and this is just a separate question from this policy, but will we be receiving in June an update on the summer school program that was just mentioned?
Actually, you'll be receiving an update at the end of this month. So during the school board meeting at the end of this month, you'll receive an update.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Next, for first reading, we have policy 518, DNI orders, replacing policy 5160. Mr. Crane.
So one policy is coming out because we've had a policy, and I think it's over 15 years old that we've brought it before the board for an update. And Minnesota School Board Association has a recommended policy, 518, and that is do not resuscitate, do not incubate orders. As directors, I do get medical documents from parents that say, please do not resuscitate my child. We would like them to pass away naturally in the school setting. We have this policy in place because we will help children. We don't want to see students pass away in our school buildings. So we will keep attempting to keep students alive in the school building. And when, for example, if we pass it over to ambulance services or pass the child over to their parents, they can make that decision. But we will help kids stay alive in our school buildings. That's basically what this policy is about. Make sense?
It does.
It's a tough one because I've received this myself as a director that says, I want to serve you as a district. This is a legal document, but because we have this policy, we will keep kids alive.
And I'm assuming you give them a copy of this.
Oh, yeah.
policy. Yeah.
Yeah. Our nurses thank us for having this policy in place.
Member Loeffler Kim, I think your hand went up.
What, from your perspective, were the main differences from the policy 5160 that we're deleting?
Not many differences, but I think this one has many more bullet points that articulate some fine details better than the previous policy has. I don't have that one in front of me right now, so I wish I could compare and contrast. Ms. Loeffler Kim? Yeah.
Let me, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Are you gonna give it to, are you gonna just put the computer in front of me? Okay. Yeah, you can already just see if you have that one, you know, the red line copy in front of you. Not a lot of fine detail, but the new policy does highlight the school staff responsibility, and we will actively involve emergency services. I don't think some of those things, those extra details were in the previous policy.
Yeah, the previous policy was pretty short.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
You got it.
Any other questions?
No, just a comment. Even though the other one may have been shorter, I'm still glad this is really concise because in a situation like that, no one wants to be.
For sure. Thanks for your observations. Yep.
Also for first reading, we have 2C, which is policy 535, service animals in schools. Mr. Gray.
So Brenda Sparts and I, we're kind of teamwork in this one. We do have a service animal situation right now in our district, and it would be nice to have this policy to support those type of programming options for Duluth Public Schools. This service animal policy by MSAB is very comprehensive. It identifies what the school district will manage and what, for example, a handler will provide, and the handler is often the student that uses the service animal. I like the detail and length of this policy because it really outlines the protections for the school district. We've had I will comment that the relationship with the current family that we're allowing the service animal into the school in one of our sites is going really well. We've had some courageous conversations around even topics around insurance, and everything's really going quite well right now. And I've met the animal. It actually sat through our last school board meeting. I don't know if you observed that at all. It was in the back corner of the room. And the student was able to attend our school board meeting for 4 hours when he is quite anxious and doesn't want to sit still for 4 hours. With his service animal, it went great. And I was able to go over and say hi to both the student and the service animal in our last school board meeting. I think it's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but I'm going to keep an eye out if the student comes.
I expect this family to come to future school board meetings,
Okay.
and especially when this policy comes forward, I expect their attendance, so look for it.
Great.
Member Loeffler Kim.
Yeah, so we have not had a policy before, but did we have practice with service animals in the past?
We've had former situations where we've allowed service animals, dogs, in the school. We've been asked about ponies and bunnies and lots of different things, but this policy will help us understand what should be allowed in schools and what shouldn't.
Great, that'll help you as staff be clear.
Yep.
Okay.
And if I could just add, from the facilities point of view and notification point of view was, we had just questions about whether or not if a animal was coming into a classroom and there might be students who are allergic or other things, that there's notifications that help us determine that, so that we're just letting families be aware. And Jason assured us that those notifications happened and there wasn't any worries about that. And then the secondary issue from business services was the insurance piece, that the family does have, I don't know if it's through their homeowner's insurance.
It is actually their individual homeowner's policy.
Yep, that has some coverage. It doesn't necessarily meet the district standard of coverage, but we can do waivers based on our policy related to coverage. So we are working with Jason and the family to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in the event that there would be a situation related to the service dog. So just wanted you folks to know that Jason's been great about working with our team related to both the insurance piece and notification of the animal in the classroom.
You just reminded me I should follow up to see how the notification event went, so I'll do that.
Thank you.
That's good, because the policy does identify in section 9, or Roman numeral 9, how we are to respond to individuals saying they have allergies or fear of animals, so.
Yep, and I've got ideas of how to respond, so.
Member Loeffler Kim?
Yeah, thank you. I thank you for adding that, CFO Erickson. That was a question a similar question I had. I'm wondering, is this an opportunity, and maybe it's been done already, for the school right now anyways, that the service animal is there for? Are we educating like the broader community on it, like the families there? Is this an opportunity for education?
I need to check in on that, Ms. Lafferkemp, so if you'd allow me some time to follow up, and then I can report back, because right now I don't know all the extent they're doing at that school site.
But you are spot on in that should be something that we require as a communication to families once a service support animal is in our schools. It's only proper to communicate to our families. So we will explore if that happened or not in this situation, which Jason believes it might have. He's going to explore and find out exactly what was provided to families.
And Jason, I know you know this about, but I know there's a theater group that goes in schools and does programs for young children on disabilities and that, and they're in Duluth, and I've seen them actually when I was working at Lester Park. They came in once, and I was so impressed with what they did, and I know they're still around, but so that might be another option.
Thank you for reminding me.
All right, thank you. Seeing no additional questions, I'm going to go to the next policy, which is 2D, policy 615, testing, accommodations, modifications, exemptions for IEPs, section 504 plans, and LEP students. Mr. Crane.
So another policy that we haven't had in the district, I worked closely with Tanya Lake on this one because she does a lot with our testing and supports for special education students while they're testing. She agrees, full support, an MSAB policy that's well written, and it supports our current practices as we have them right now in Duluth Public Schools for testing. So I recommend we consider this. It basically follows our current testing practices and identifies all the supports needed during that time. Pretty straightforward.
I see individuals still perusing the documents. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Jason. And again, those policies that Jason went through are for first reading. So next to policies for second reading, we have policy 419, tobacco. Free environment, replacing policy 11140. Member Loeffler Kemp.
Just while Jason was there, Jason, thank you so much for bringing these new policies forward and the work you've already put into reviewing them with other staff. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Lafferkemp. It's a little less busy with COVID policies and procedures that we're creating, so we have some time to work on these things now.
Thank you.
Thanks for
And
letting me
actually,
go.
I believe, actually, I'm gonna hold off on the 419 tobacco and move to the other policies, if you're okay with that, Member Lofton, because Mrs. Larver will be here, and so I wanted to give her an opportunity to be here for that. So let's start off with our next policy, which is 801, equal access to facilities.
We don't have any recommended changes from our initial meeting last month where we did the first reading, so if there's any questions that board members have, we would continue to recommend that move forward as is.
Yeah, I didn't have any follow-ups from last month, and I appreciate the information you provided on it so far. So
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's go to our next policy for second reading, which is policy 802, disposal of obsolete equipment and material.
Again, we have no changes, recommended changes from our last month. If there's any questions from board members or administrators, we would recommend this one also moving forward. And all three of the policies coming through the 800 series are the MSBA policies that we did not have, similar to the 500 series that you just heard. These are things we do in practice already, but we're memorializing them in a policy.
Seeing no questions. We do have a regulation that's also here for second reading. Oh, did I miss one? Sorry about that.
No, and if I could just comment on 807 real quick.
Yes, I'm Council President.
Yep, and I just wanted to clarify, and I think I said this last month, but 807 has the list of all of the different reports and different things we have to do every year, and I just wanted to make sure all board members know that some of those things are in progress right now, so the policy outlines all the different pieces, and our health and safety team and other teams are putting together those processes. Most of them all are in place, but I just wanted to share, for example, I know the superintendent's been receiving emails right now because we've been renewing some yearly licensures, and they go to the superintendent. So there's some things that we continue to work on, but again, we're memorializing those things and those things we're working on. So just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you. And for the record, Mrs. Erickson is referring to policy 807, health and safety. Any questions?
no questions. I just appreciate that information. I appreciate all you do. That's a long list.
It's
so.
a big one. And that is a whole team of people within our facilities, health and safety teams that do a lot of that work.
Moving on, let's go back up to our other policy. Let's see here. It is for regulations, information only, policy 419R, smudging and pipe ceremonies regulation.
And I know that facilities manager Dave Spooner and Jen Larva and Benny Sequay were working to coordinate an opportunity to meet and speak about this, but have not yet had that opportunity, and so we're looking to pause on that for this.
And I think, just to clarify, and maybe this is a Patty question, regulations are just informational and can get edited and changed at any time. And so we just haven't had that opportunity, so it actually doesn't need a second reading per se. But we will probably be bringing this forward next month if there is, if at all, if there's any modifications. And I know facilities just had a few tweaks that they wanted to just clarify from a safety perspective. And I know, Member Loeffler, Kemp, and I kind of talked about it briefly last month. And with a lot of things going on, our facilities team just hasn't had a chance to address it. So if it's okay with the team here, that we could bring it forward next month for any, if there is any minor changes to the regulation.
Because of the hiccup in the opportunity to meet, I didn't have a chance to talk to Assistant Superintendent either about that. So
Thank you.
learned that.
Any questions then regarding where we are on that? Okay, thank you, and we will close out with our last policy, and I know you have some insight on policy 419, tobacco free environment. I know there was a specific ask by Mrs. Larva or
Yes.
Director Larva.
In the,
Yes, there is an item under other.
section 2, general statement, letter D. She would like the committee members to consider that paragraph and whether or not we should include it or not.
Could you please repeat that just a little louder?
Okay. Section 2, general statement, section D, she would like you to review that part of the policy to determine whether or not we want to keep that included as we move forward.
I think that's the section we talked about at the school board meeting.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
We did.
The part about solicitation.
Right, accepting gifts.
I guess I would follow the MSBA on that one. I think they recommend that we keep it in. Rosie, do you have thoughts on it?
I would recommend it stay in.
Any questions? Any other things that Mrs. Art wanted the board to consider?
That was the only section that she had mentioned.
So that was for second reading. And we do have one last item, if I can back to the agenda. We have an other. And Superintendent Magus, under other, we have discussion on school board workshop session recommendations.
Sure. So during the school board work session, we talked about several of our policies, particularly the 200 series, and then also there's the 2000 series and the 8000 series, which are the 4 numbered folder sets of information related to policies related to board operations, board conduct, as well as operations of the superintendent and administration in conjunction with the board. And so during that conversation, we reviewed several policies, and there were some key actions for us to consider as a school board. We have not had an opportunity to really dive into that fully, but I think it would be good for us to look at maybe bringing forward in our May meeting. But they talked about, just in general, with the policies as we're looking at them. Of course, we want to update and get out of the 2000 and 8000 series, but watching language and policies that begins to shift, watch for language that begins to shift away from governance and towards management, and make sure that we keep intentional effort to make sure that the policies are more focused in a managerial or in a governance way as opposed to a managerial way. And in particular, we had some notes related to policy 209, just some examples of things that we probably want to clarify as we move forward. So basically, we'd like to take a look next month at the 200 series, particularly 209, but then also looking at those 2000 and 8000 series that are a little more antiquated, because some of those policies, some of those older policies also tend to be less specific about governance and a little bit more managerial in nature. So I just wanted to remind us that that was kind of a placeholder from a conversation we had in board retreat. And I talked to Member Loeffler Kemp about just bringing it up here and having further conversation next month.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I was actually reviewing my notes from that meeting the other night.
Good stuff.
Member Loeffler Kemp?
Yeah, and I think bringing it forward at our June meeting, if you're able to, would be great. And maybe in your board updates that you do, you can just reference that so that people, I know we were shared the notes for that meeting, from that retreat, just so people can review the notes for that meeting as well, all of the board members. So thank you. And Member Sadowski, if you have any other questions, that we just wanted to make sure we took that really good discussion that we had at the retreat with all the board members that were there and continue moving with it.
Yep, I don't have any follow-up questions, but I think it's a great idea that we follow up on it. So, thanks, Rosie. Remember,
All right, everyone, that concludes our agenda, but it looks like Member Loeffler Kemp, go ahead.
No, I was playing with my hand.
Okay. Well, Member Lawfer Kip, that concludes our agenda for today.
Okay, thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, for facilitating it, and for everybody that came as staff to participate as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.